Hi everyone, it's Christine, your lovable, huggable muse, and I'm just bringing you my uploads from my downloads. And today we're going to be diving into a new series, you guys, that I've been really excited to kind of delve into, which is basically describing the possible marriage of science and spirituality, you guys. Science and spirituality, everyone, is that meant to be? Well, some people might be doubtful, but I say yes. I mean, like all marriages and relationships, there definitely needs to be some adequate communication and understanding for it to work. And the point of this series really is to just try to build that bridge between science and spirituality, facts and intuition, body and spirit. And for the longest time, just to kind of give you some history and feedback, everyone, religion was one of the things that answered the question that man had about its environment. I mean, angry gods usually equaled plague, floods, cataclysmic events. But as humans really started to evolve, this really wasn't a good enough answer for a lot of people. So humanity just really started to delve more into what could be observable and recorded, which is what we now know as science. But you know what the funny thing is right now, you guys, that I've been noticing is it seems that everything has gone full circle, okay? So basically, what science has been able to record and observe in certain things is starting to take this really weird, unusual path. I mean, especially through science and quantum physics, it seems to be kind of leading us back into this realm of spirituality and intuition. So let me go on some more. I mean, today, you guys, we're going to be talking about something called panpsychism, and we're going to be discussing why I'm talking to this rock. Okay, so since the dawn of time, let's go a little bit back into history. Humans have always been trying to humanize and animate all things in life. I mean, in ancient religions, the sun, the moon, and the universe were all pretty much idealized as being some form of godlike figure that had some type of consciousness. And, the idea of animism is really a concept that all the elements in this material world, like rocks, trees, the sea, and the earth, and other geographical masses, that they all possess a spirit or have some form of consciousness. In fact, various religions today, right now, everyone, like Hinduism, Taoism, Buddhism, they all still practice this fundamental belief, and they believe that all things are just connected, that we're just these separate organisms, part of a higher being, spirit, or source. And I like to kind of just imagine that if you, as a person, are connecting to your cells in that manner, if you want to think of it that way. Although your cells are these unique and individual organisms on their own, they also make up a larger organism, which is you. And when we're talking about this larger organism and a universal level, we do tend to call it what we know as, some of us know as, the collective. And one of the things that we can accept, especially when it comes to animals and insects, we can really accept them having some form of consciousness a lot more than we would say a rock. All right, I mean, we can accept that from things that are animated and respond similarly to how we do as humans to pain and the stimulations that we experience. I mean, it just is a little bit more familiar to us. But what about those things that we consider less biologically similar, like a tree or a rock? Okay, I mean, is it conscious? And some sciences will actually say yes. I mean, in fact, the more complex an organism is biologically, the more complex is consciousness is said to be, or so science will have this to believe, okay? And really what's really cool, this is what I'm wanting to kind of introduce to you guys, is this new science and philosophy called panpsychism. And they basically are using resonance theory to explain how all living things have consciousness. And it's becoming more widely accepted in some scientific fields and in science nowadays. So I'm really excited about the topic, just because what's been considered pseudoscience for the longest time is really just starting to get some attention from the scientific communities, and people are actually, using their resources to research more about it, and then they're just finding some really amazing things. Currently, what science is using to measure the levels of consciousness in humans is they use the alpha, beta, and gamma rays. And these rays are technically made up of electrical activity that's found in the human brain. And that basically is what defines our consciousness. What's also interesting is, what else is made up of the same electrical activity? Well, it's all matter, you guys. Yes, at an atomic level, all matter is pretty much made up of the atoms that are made up of the protons and electrons that have some form of measurable electrical activity. And I found this really interesting article that I'm going to post down below that talks more about panpsychism and the resonance theory. It was just one of the things that caught my attention when I do research on some other things, and I really thought it'd be really a cool idea to do a video on it. And the funny thing, I find it a little bit interesting, you guys, is that resonance theory has a lot to do with, just the complexity of an organism biologically, okay? So, the amount of the electrical activity in different organisms can actually be measured right now, and they can definitely make certain observations about them. So, studies have been able to make this correlation between how much electrical activity goes on in an organism, and they're kind of able to correlate that with, levels of consciousness. So they've been basically observing how higher numbers of connections and faster speeds of those connections in an organism is really relative to like the higher levels of consciousness in that being. I mean, so for instance, more simple organisms like this rock, okay, will have fewer and slower electrical connections. And it would, in a sense, have less observable levels of consciousness than, let's say, a microorganism like amoeba or algae, okay? And I say observable, everyone, basically because, to what capacity is it conscious? We really have no way of knowing that right now, but it's interesting to see that there is that connection between things like brain waves and just the the electrical connections in anything that we see in our everyday environment. And let's even delve a little bit more into this conversation about communication, and can we communicate with these different types of matter in our lives? I mean, we already know we can communicate to some degree with an animal. I mean, our pets can pretty much tell us if they're hungry or if they want something. I mean, they're even able to communicate emotions to us that we can comprehend, like anger and fear. But as we go to other forms of life, either higher or lower in biological makeup, okay? And, and for instance, let's take the lower sense of consciousness first, like a plant or a tree, okay? Is it possible in any way for it to communicate with us, or vice versa, us communicate with them? Well, I think they do. If you garden at all, or you're a gardener, and you learn to speak the language of a plant, maybe through, colors or by sight, all right? You'll definitely start to know whether a plant is distressed, or if it needs more water, or it needs more sun, if you're a little bit more familiar with, the makeup of a plant. I mean, even if you don't have a green thumb, you guys, you're gonna know enough about certain life forms to just understand that, if it's not doing well or if it needs something. I mean, look at how our environment is reacting to some of the pollutants that we're putting out there and to some of the activities that we're doing. We can physically see what is going on in the environment that makes us kind of question whether or not, what we're seeing is, doing okay. And let's go ahead and take this more into like a micro level with cells and organisms, okay? they're not necessarily similar to us in a physiological sense. I mean, they do follow the same levels of protocol that human beings do in a sense of, what it's like to be aware. I mean, they eat, they reproduce, and they communicate with each other. They can even attack and hijack each other. So, at this conscious level, if they're able to, perform that, can we hypothetically say that, can we communicate with them and vice versa? Is there some way for those life forms to technically communicate with us? Let's think about that for a second or two. And for me, guys, I already say we do. I mean, we send messages to our body all the time. I mean, with what we put in it and how we treat it. I mean, we give it vitamins from the food we eat to nourish the cells, and give it the building blocks to basically create the fortress it needs to protect itself from intruders. I mean, we give it weapons like antioxidants to fight off harmful organisms. We exercise and move so that the blood can deliver these messages throughout the body a lot quicker. And if we took that to even a higher level than that, because that was my last suggestion to you guys, is like, let's take it higher up, okay? Let's take everything to the next level. We take it to the next level, okay? And we actually learn to speak its language now, and this is more in a vibratory sense, I mean, not just through our actions and what we're doing, but through like a language which it can understand. I mean, what if we could start to vibe with our bodies so that we could literally give our bodies the instructions it needs to maybe heal from something, or, to repair itself. Let's think about that for a few moments. I mean, that topic really interests me a lot. So you guys, I mean, finally, really the question I ask is like, what does this really say about, the more complex systems in our environment that are made up of a vast number of systems and biological elements, okay? Like our planet and the universe. Does it have consciousness, you guys? Can it communicate with us, all right? And that's the question I think science has always been trying to ask. And I really think that the planet and the universe has been literally trying to communicate to us all this time, and in so many ways. I mean, because the universe is probably the most complex structure we've ever known, and I absolutely believe it is a highly conscious being, okay? So, I really just want to kind of leave us off with this one thought that I just, I just let that come down, and I really want to push out to you is, in this world where only conscious life seems to matter, I mean, hopefully we really start to understand that all matter does have consciousness, and that all matter matters. And I am so happy to be able to share this message with you guys today. I get a lot of my ideas from just articles and things that I researched, and then I even researched it further for you guys in case you have any more questions. And I definitely leave a lot of my research down here, so you know where everything's coming from, and you can get a little bit more information if you want to do more research for yourself. If you have any questions or concerns about anything I talk about or in my topics, or if you just want to learn more about something, please share anything from the law of attraction to, being a highly conscious being, to just consciousness. I really love to delve into those different topics and read more about it and share it with you guys. Thank you so much for, coming and joining me today. You guys have an amazing day. Bye-bye.